Hello everybody, welcome to the Stutter State channel. My name is Sage, and today we're going to talk about something completely different because I'm so excited. Today's the release date of Stephen King's It Chapter 2. And as you can see with all these books that I have here, I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I've actually read his book, It, several times. In my opinion, and you're free to think otherwise, I think Stephen King is one of the best, if not the best, writer we have today. I believe he defined the horror genre and what it is. My relationship with Stephen King's books are very personal, and it all started around in 1990, because that's when the first It movie was released, the first version. And I don't remember exactly what the scenario was, but I remember that I was overhearing my parents watching a movie, and a horror movie, and then I heard someone stutter in the movie, and it was the character Bill Denbrough, nicknamed Stuttering Bill in the story. And so I wasn't allowed to watch it, even though I was, at that time, I think I was like 11 or 12 years old. Later on, when everybody thought that I was watching Saturday morning cartoons, I was actually hunting for this VHS tape, and I put it in and I started to watch. And yes, I was afraid of the clown and everything, and it was a horror movie. It freaked me out, but it was the first time I actually saw someone else stutter. I was still trying to come to terms and understand what was going on with me and my speech. And Bill Denbrough's stutter was so reminiscent of mine. Mine was a little more severe, but it was so reminiscent of mine. It was fascinating, and it would ever since then. I was hooked. I was hooked on the horror genre, and I was hooked on Stephen King. When I found out that the movie was based on a book, I hunted down Stephen King in the library, in our school library, and I started to read it. And I loved that the stutter was even in the book. As I was getting into the genre and reading more about Stephen King, I found out that actually Stephen King has many characters in a lot of his books that do stutter, and I always wondered why. So that fascinated me even more with Stephen King. To my knowledge, he doesn't stutter. His children don't stutter. His wife doesn't stutter. I've read a lot about him, and I don't recall him being exposed to any stutterers during his younger years or during college. So it was always fascinating to me why he would always have characters in his stories that would stutter. What's even more interesting to me is that usually in Stephen King's books, the character that stutters is usually the protagonist or the hero of the story. And if not, that stutterer usually has so much influence on the book, on the plot, that it takes the whole story in another direction. So the way I see it is Stephen King always writes the characters with strength always have that stutter. And I read a lot, and I would watch his interviews, and nobody actually asked him that question. And you know how they say, what would you do if you had the chance to meet someone famous? Who would you want that person to be? First of all, as a writer myself, I would love to meet Stephen King, and if I did and I had 10 seconds, the only question I would want to ask him is, why is it that most of the times you have stutterers in your book, and where does that come from? I just want to understand the background to that. Back to the movie. I actually think that this new version, the chapter 1, I think was released in 2017. I think they did the book justice and the original movie justice. I didn't like that it was separated on 2 parts, because then I had to wait so long for chapter 2, which is released today. But I also liked it because that made the movie longer. As I was entering the movie, going to watch chapter 1, I remember that I was worried that they would have minimized Bill Denbrough's stutter, but I'm happy that they didn't. And now going to watch chapter 2 soon, maybe tomorrow. I hope that as an adult they didn't remove the stutter either, because as you know from the books and from the first movie, Bill Denbrough overcomes his stutter as he grows up, but when he realizes and when they tell him that it is back, his stutter returns. And I remember he was, at least in the first movie and in the book, he was with his significant other, and I believe he gets a phone call and they tell him that it is back, and he starts to stutter on the phone, and his significant other tells him that she's never heard him stutter before. So apparently that lets you know that he had overcome it, and because of the anxiety of it returning, his stutter came back as well. So I'm excited to watch part 2. I hope they did the stutter justice. I don't think they should have removed it. I'm glad they didn't. I'm definitely going to come back with a review from a stutterer's perspective about the movie and about Bill Denbrough's stutter in the movie, and share with you my thoughts and how I think the producers, whether or not they did the stutter any justice, based on a stutter and based on the book and based on the original movie. Whether or not you are a fan of the horror genre, if you're a stutterer, I believe you would appreciate Stephen King's input on Bill Denbrough's stutter, how he was bullied, how he overcame his stutter when he was younger and went after the girl that he liked, how he got the girl that he liked even though he did stutter. So there's a certain strength in there that I do appreciate. So let me know your thoughts if you've seen it and what you think on the stutter, and I'll be uploading a review of the movie pretty soon. Till next time.